boy looks at me and says, I think you need to double check what time this is. The ceiling, the material everything's made out of begins to change. Everything in the room shifts. There's a shift in structure. Clear as day, as I can see my hand, as I can see this pillow, the room shifts. So I've experienced time travel on numerous occasions. If you're someone that knows me, you know that I don't really like sharing stories with people, but at the same time, I understand that at the beginning of my journey, when I wanted to grow and learn how to do certain things, I went to YouTube and I found people who were doing these things, and so I know that this can help someone who's also on their journey. So I'm going to explain how, because I received freely and so freely I'm going to give back to you. I've experienced that specifically multiple times, some more blatant than others, like I've been back in time and met my younger self, I've done all sorts. But let me explain. The first time I remember experiencing time travel on a corporate level or on a group level was in a church meeting that I went to. Now, I'm not a Christian anymore, but it's very important that I explain and tell you all this story for specific reasons. So we were all praying and it was around 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. at the time, because we used to do all night prayer meetings. Now what happened was, and we were all in the room and we witnessed this, at 5 a.m. the clock stayed on 5 a.m. for a good 3 or 4 hours. And I think it got to the point where someone in the room actually set a timer. And 3 hours on the timer went by, but the time stayed at around 5 a.m. And we all realized this afterwards, because it's like, while we were praying for a long time, what happened, we came out of it. I must have been like maybe 12 at the time, 13 at the time, and that was that. But what that did, and this is what's important, is it planted a seed where I then realized, okay, time is something that can be stretched, time is something that can be bent, and time is something that can be manipulated. I just had this understanding playing at the back of my mind. Now, I then go through a whole load of stuff, long story short, and I start meditating because I want to get to know God, I want to understand myself on a much deeper level. So this is now, I'm about 18 and I'm in college, so I've moved out from home because the sixth form that I went to, I ended up boarding there for 2 years. So what I would do is every morning I would wake up and I would meditate for at least an hour. Now I built it up to that point. If you guys have my meditation guide, which talks about all of these things, including the time travel stuff, if you have read it, I basically explain step by step what I did, how I set up my practice, the things you can expect to experience, it's all there. But I'm doing this every day. And one day I go in, just as I've always done, and what happens is I'm there, and then all of a sudden, everything in the room shifts. And when I say everything in the room shifts, I mean literally clear as day, as I can see my hand, as I can see this pillow, the room shifts. It isn't an instant shift, because what happens first is I feel my physical body begin to shut down and I begin moving another one. But as this is happening, the whole room shifts. And all of the furniture, because this is my own room, right? This is my own room, no one else is in this room, and I know my room well because I'm living there. Everything shifts. Furniture starts to change, like the wardrobe begins to change. And when I say change, I mean there's a shift in structure. So everything is still pretty much as it was, but you can see that everything is changing. The ceiling, the material everything's made out of begins to change, and everything begins to look very medieval. Now, as this is happening, I'm also hearing music. And this music it's almost like chanting, but as someone who understands music, I make music, I produce music, I know that the music that I'm listening to is from the medieval era. So I'm just there like, whoa, what is happening? I'm also thinking this is pretty cool, finally, because I've heard of other people's stories experiencing things. But I'm still confused. I don't know what's going on. I don't know that I've shifted out of the current time pocket that I was in, which you can do with your spirit and also with your soul. But what happens is this little boy comes into the room. Now it's a spirit, right? Comes into the room. Now bearing in mind, I'm excited at the time, so I can't remember all of the details of the conversation, but there's a part that stands out. Me and this boy are talking for like a while. By a while, I mean like a good couple of minutes. It's not like a brief conversation. The boy is dressed in white. And he's just there, he's in the room, it's a spirit, and we're just talking to each other. Chopping it up, as you would like to say, just talking as you do, right? Now, I'm asking this boy questions and things are making less and less sense because I just remember being in this experience and asking him questions, and the responses that he's giving, they're confusing me. And I'm like, wait, what? Because I know this building, I know where I'm in, I know the premises that I'm on. And all of a sudden, the boy looks at me and says, I think you need to double check what time this is. And he says, what year you're in. And he looks at me and he says that. And I'm like, what? And he's like, follow me. So I then get up off my bed and I follow him out of the room. How it worked was outside of my room, you had all these other rooms as well where some of the guys were living as well. And there was a long corridor. Everything looked the same but different, much older. Anyway, I'm walking down this corridor. We get to the end and there's a door that doesn't exist now because I imagine the building was reconfigured. And the boy opens the door and walks through. I then follow him through that door. Then a whole load of other stuff happens that I'm not ready to share yet. But that was the first time I experienced time travel. Now, over the years, and it isn't something that I've necessarily engaged intentionally, I have bent time before to suit my needs and requirements, like if I'm running late for a thing or I want to catch a train or whatever. But specifically, that was the first time I remember tangibly experiencing time travel. Now, there have been other times, and I'll talk about this time as well, where I've been in experiences where I've traveled back in my life and I've met a younger version of myself. And once again, I've done that accidentally. And what happened was I remember going back in time and literally watching myself doing all this stuff, running around in the house that I was living in at the time. And I wasn't trying to get seen by my younger self. My younger self accidentally saw me. And we didn't exchange words, but there was a mutual agreement, because what happens is in the spirit, there are more senses than there are in the physical. You don't need to speak to each other to acknowledge each other. Telepathy works, and you can also communicate in different ways. We looked at each other, and we were there for a good, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 seconds. We acknowledged each other without words, and then I let him go. And then I came back. The reason why I'm saying this is because I've spoken to people and I've met people and they've told me that they have all these different wacky experiences with time. And we have questions about time travel. But I want to explain why these things happen and how it actually is a normal thing. This is for people who already know these things are possible. I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm not here to deal with anyone who's skeptical. For those who have experienced these things and are looking for explanations, I want to say this. The spirit that is inside of you exists outside of space and time. What that means is it is not bound by space and time. It has always existed and it will always exist. That's the idea of eternity. Time is only a construct that exists within our concept of reality. When you step outside of our concept of reality and you ascend into higher realms, time no longer becomes a thing. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Doctor Strange, where he's messing around with the timelines and all of this kind of stuff, but it literally is like that. Time was created. Now, for many people, time is an enemy or something that they fight against. But as mystics, time is something that we are supposed to partner with and actually have control over. Not only are we supposed to know the times and seasons, but we're also supposed to be able to work with it. Let's look at deja vu, for example. And I know that everyone has experienced this before. You've been in a situation and you feel like you've been there before. This is because your spirit exists outside of space and time. There is no space and time with your spirit. And there have been so many times I've been in situations and I'm like, oh, I've been here before. This is going to happen, and then that's going to happen. And then he's going to say this, and then she's going to do this, etc., etc. And it's something that a lot of people do experience. We just dismiss it as deja vu. But no. The more you begin to connect with the spiritual part of yourself, the more you're going to experience these things, because what you're doing is you're connecting with a limitless part of yourself. You're connecting with a part of yourself that doesn't adhere to the same rules you've been conditioned to adhere to. So what happens when the spirit, the soul, and the body then come closer together and that interface begins? Or what happens is you begin to experience the things that your spirit does on a regular basis more. And so what's going on is your soul is remembering fragments of what your spirit is doing and communicating it to you, but you just don't see the full picture yet. But this is why we do things specifically to master the soul, because once the soul becomes clear, the interface becomes clear and you unlock more abilities. It's not that you're working to gain any abilities. You have the abilities within you, you just need to unlock and begin to practice. And for the most part, all that is getting out of the way of yourself. And so I just want to say this, if any of you out there have experienced any sort of time, I call them time miracles, time experiences, you're not crazy. You may tell some people and they'll think you're crazy, but there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world experiencing these things too. I'm here to let you know that you're not alone, and I'm going to make more storytime videos to explain some of the things that I do and have done and experienced, so that you understand that not only are these things possible, but you can obtain them through practice. Now, for my religious people, prophecy is essentially peering down the timeline, looking at future events, looking at future possibilities, seeing the most probable one or the guaranteed one and then speaking it now. So even when you prophesy, you're time traveling. It's just that sometimes certain words and phrases get labeled as taboo when they don't need to be. But with that, I'm Eternos. I teach people how to master their soul. I teach people emotional balance, emotional control. If you are new to meditation and you want a guide or a quick guide you can read that will help give you the best startup possible, you can click the link in the description of this video. I have a meditation guide and I have another guide that will teach you how to fall asleep instantly if you practice what is inside. If you read my guide on meditation and begin your practice, there is nothing, I think I included everything, there's nothing you should experience that isn't included in that book. In terms of the symptoms, if there is anything else, you can just message me. But that book is pretty comprehensive. I've had a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine who start meditation and they've read my guide, and where they thought they were going crazy, where they thought they were doing it wrong, where they thought they were going to die, I probably shouldn't have said that, but they thought they were experiencing things, just for context, the feeling like you're going to die thing is for out-of-body experiences and stuff, which I do talk about in the guide as well. But for all of these types of things, it's all there in the guide and it's all accessible. So please get it, it's available. And yeah, please comment as well, interact with me guys. Let me know if there's anything more you want to know, if you have any questions. That's what I'm here for. I am now trying to be for you what others have been for me, because I was just a child, a young person online. And I used to think that these spiritual things were unobtainable. I used to think that you had to be gifted. I used to think that you had to be anointed or blessed by someone to experience these things, not realizing that it's every human being's birthright. We all have a spirit, we are all royalty, we all just don't know how to connect because we haven't been taught to. And I know this channel right now may not have many subscribers, but for those of you who are here, I know that there is at least one person who is benefiting from what I'm saying, and so I will continue to say, I will continue to share it, because you are important and your journey is important. And if you're serious about your development and growth, I want to help you, because I was serious about mine, I still am serious about mine, and we're all on this journey together. So with that guys, peace.